Welcome to the SIWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our new guest hosts, Adity and Gupta, who comes to us from a background with customer experience and public administration, HR training, project coordination, and a whole bunch of other things. So we'll get a little bit of her background. And first of all, let's start off with, what are you up to these days? So what are you doing now, Adity?
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you so much. So jumping right into it, right now, my role is customer experience and operations manager. And I'm working at a startup that's like a sustainable beauty company. And it's very different from what I've done in the past.
Okay. Sounds good. So we'll probably get and dig deep into that past a little bit. So if we kind of rewind the clock, what were you like as a kid? So little Adity running around, what was she like, and what were her kind of ambitions and aspirations? So any early childhood memories as a kid?
That's a really fun question, actually. I think I was very curious as a child.
Okay.
I really wanted to know how things worked. I had a lot of questions. I'm pretty sure my parents were pretty annoyed by my volume of questions. I really enjoyed building things, learning how things worked and building things, and sometimes taking things apart, be that toys or something else. That's really what I enjoyed as a child. I think I was also kind of adventurous. I was willing to try different things. I wasn't afraid of getting hurt or looking a little silly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that kind of like a stereotypical kind of tomboy where you're just rough and tumble, climbing trees and scraping knees and things like that? Or is it like a different version of that? Okay.
Very much.
And then how does that translate into like a degree in economics? Because generally curiosity, pulling things apart, that sounds more like engineer than kind of on the business side. So how did you go from kind of that very curious kid building and taking apart toys to kind of a path into economics?
That's, again, I think I also wanted to learn how the world worked.
Okay.
At some point, got really interested in business and governments and economics in general, and that's kind of how that funneled. But I would say, so in my O-levels, I think I had a really strange combination of courses and subjects that I was doing. Like I had arts, and then I had economics, and then I also had physics and maths and chemistry. So basically I covered all my bases because I was like, I don't know where I really want to go. So let me just learn everything. And then kind of still funnel that down during my O-levels into math and economics. Because in my mind, if you know math, you can still go into engineering, or, the avenues open to you are a lot broader. And then sometime during my A-levels, I just fell in love with economics and basically mathematical modeling and research. And I thought that's where I wanted to go. And so took economics in my undergrad, and then obviously, because I can't decide on anything, kind of took a lot of sociology and anthropology courses.
Okay.
So yeah.
So in that, I guess it's a high school experience where you kind of fell in love with economics. So what was that like? Was there a particular course that you took, or just a book that you read, or something like how do you know it's oh, this is it for me?
Oh, I think it was the Freakonomics books.
Okay.
They're really good. He would just explain phenomena and in the real world playing out in terms of economics, and that just really interested me.
Right. So that's Freakonomics by Stephen Dubner and Stephen
Yes.
Yeah. That's definitely a very interesting book, and I could see why it would turn you on to economics. So you're kind of firm in that path, and then you enroll in an undergrad, and then you still decide to take all these other things like the sociology and things like that. What was kind of the decision process around that? Is that again to keep your options open, or like what was the thought process there?
I think, and this kind of also goes back to how we were raised as children. We were always encouraged to pursue our curiosity, see where it goes. And so I think I never got that kind of like Asian parent talk from my parents going like, you need to be a doctor, engineer, or you can be a disappointment.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Never quite got that, which was really, really good. I'm so grateful for that. So whatever we were interested in, my dad himself was like a huge, like he could read couple books in a day. That's how fast he'd go through them. So he just always go like, yeah, take the course, do this, do that. So when I took like a first like SOC courses, you know how you have to take like minor courses. I took one, found it really interesting, and then just kind of continued doing more of those. It was really more from like, I'm interested in this and I'm curious, and I wrote some papers that got a bit of attention, and I just followed that path for as long as I wanted to.
Cool. So it sounds like you explored your curiosity and your interests in undergrad and had some of this sociology courses and things like that. And then did you have a sense of what you wanted to do after graduation? And was the process to land a job after graduation? Because you ultimately went back into grad school, right? Was that always like the plan, or was that just something after the fact?
Yeah, I would say even now, I'm not someone who has like very strict plans. So I didn't have that as kind of a planned thing. But one of the reasons why I went down like sociology and anthropology path is also because as a child, I was very interested in just like seeing a just world, I think.
Okay.
My father worked in the development sector. And this is, you have to understand, this is Bangladesh back in the 70s to the 90s when, poverty rate was through the roof. Healthcare was terrible. And we got exposed to a lot of inequality and just like human suffering, I would say. And that was also always something that I would probably want to see like a better place in the world for. So kind of knew that probably economics, I want to do economics, but probably move towards like development economics. That's why like the SOC and Anthro courses still, I would say like made me understand the world a little bit better, that everything is not black and white. Just think about like how in Asia we think of gender and sexuality. Those are not things I would have understood if I didn't take those courses. So I would say that they really helped me develop a better understanding of the world, and power structures and capitalism and all of those things. So yeah, I think actually my first job out of university, well, not exactly out of university, while I was still in university, was in the development sector, was with doing research on like, underprivileged children and developing programs that can give them a better life. So that's how I started.
Sounds good. And then you had a year-long stint in recruitment. How does that transition happen? Because that seems a little bit out of place.
That is very out of place, actually. So when I was in university, I got approached by a professor whose friend works at this like really big, like one of the biggest TV channels, like news channels in Asia.
Okay.
And he's like, do you want to give voiceovers for the English news? And I'm like, are they going to pay me? And he was like, yeah, for sure. And I'm like, yeah, sure. That sounds easy. I just have to read off a piece of paper. So that's how I got introduced to independent television. I was just like kind of doing this on the side while I was still in university. And then around the time that I was getting done, I kind of like had a chance encounter with the HR head. He talked to me and he's like, I want you to develop a couple of training programs. And it was supposed to be a short stint, but it turned out to be like a full-fledged HR role once the HR person left. I kind of like was kind of helping them out. And then he's like, why don't you just take this job? And, you know, I'm never someone who says no to things. I'm like, corporate could be interesting. Let me see. And it turned out to be a 1-year stint.
Awesome. So after that, you decided to transition into a grad program, or like how did that transition happen?
I would say the transition kind of happened because of the state of affairs in Bangladesh. I am a religious minority in Bangladesh, and there was just like instances where we didn't really feel very safe. So at a certain point, it's just like I really needed to probably move out of there to you know, get a better life, secure life. So that was one of the things that was like always at the back of our minds. But the other thing is like I was interested in economics, and then at some point I thought, you know, working in the development sector, working at corporate, I'm like, this is not how I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change the world if I go into government. So public administration looked really interesting. And I applied and I got like a massive scholarship, and I'm like, okay, this is what it is.
Nice. And then how was the master's experience? Because you ended up getting a scholarship in Saskatchewan. And how was that master's experience there?
It was probably one of the most fun times of my life, I'd say, because the program really allows you to like kind of curate a program of your own. You can, again, kind of follow your curiosity, which was what attracted me to this particular program. You can even like build your own course with the help of a professor. You can also build your own course, which is something that I actually ended up doing. I ended up getting funneled down to innovation policy, and then kind of built my own course. And, you know, I've had great fun, but I think the most important thing, and this is kind of like, if you will, a tip for everybody listening, is talk to people, is like, be interested, talk to people, take the work, even if you don't quite feel like you're ready for it right then. I remember like I used to read up all the research papers that like professors that I admired had put out, and I would go talk to them, like discuss it with them, and they'd go like, hey, you know, if you're interested, I had this little project going on. Why don't you work on it? Obviously, that takes care of your financial issues. Like, it was very good for me. But it exposed me to so much. And I learned so much. Like, I even now, like when I compare my like research skills, like my say on Tableau or other platforms, data manipulation platforms, my skills are far better than people who took just courses because I applied them.
For sure. I think that's a great tip for everybody in school, where like classes are great and you learn a lot of things, but oftentimes more of the education and learning happens outside of the classroom, where it's going on your own, like reading papers, talking to professors, industry folks, and networking events and things like that can be a great source of opportunity as well. So, so you chartered your own course in a master's program, and then ultimately you ended up right in public administration. Well, it doesn't seem like that from your LinkedIn. So what was that transition like?
That's not exactly what happened. And this is again to the point of talk to people, and figure out that I think once you will never know what something is like until you actually do it. In my head, I'd imagined life in public service as a certain like it to play out a certain way. But when I got into research, I was really liking research because I got a research associate job like right after. The day I presented my thesis, my professor was like, "Hey, what are you going to do?" And I'm like, look for a job. And he's like, "Yeah, why don't you just start working with me?" And I was like, "Okay, that works." But really just when I was really liking research, but I wanted to know what my time would be like in public service. And then I kind of reached out to a bunch of people on LinkedIn, all in like junior level roles, because as an undergrad, just like finishing my master's, I know that I would only be applying for junior level roles or internship roles. And I kind of talked to them about their experience and what they do on a day-to-day basis. Like, that was very important to me. Like, what do you do? How does it make you feel fulfilled? Do you end up actually using the skills that you thought you'd use? And what I heard didn't really make me want to go into public services at a junior level.
Interesting.
The other thing is, I just felt like as a woman of color, my experience might be slightly different. The opportunities I am presented with might be slightly different. So I was like, maybe this is not the right time. I'm still interested, but this going into a junior role might not do it for me. So I kind of backed off, but I still was hoping to work at either like a research firm or with a company that works closely with any level of government, be that municipal, provincial, or federal. And that's when I kind of chanced upon this role at Research Money, which was, again, like not something that I had done in the past. It was more of like a customer experience manager, but their clientele is 100% government. And I was just like, this is perfect. I will get to talk to a lot of people. They do a lot of conferences, and I would just learn a lot. So what I thought would be a small stint, short stint, turned out to be like a 4-year stint. But yeah, again, if there's something to take away from that, I would say, don't rely on your imagination to figure out what a role is going to be like. Actually talk to people who do that.
Sounds good. What I took from that is a lot of people, when they network, they're only connecting with like the HR people or their like potential future bosses, but talking to the people who actually have the job that you want and understanding like, well, what do you do? And if it resonates with you, awesome, keep going. And if it doesn't, which it sounds like it was your case, then maybe you look into other avenues, but trying to find what was the core of the things that you like. So you want to work with government, and it can often be applied in many different ways. So how was the family situation in this whole endeavor? Like, were your parents pretty supportive along the lines? It sounded like that your dad was pretty like nurturing in terms of like, yeah, go learn everything. But like when you kind of switch into different areas, were there any like restrictions involved, or was it pretty much open?
No, there's never any restrictions for us. Me and my sister were incredibly lucky that our parents have been our biggest support, no matter what we've wanted to do. And as a South Asian woman, I think a lot of people don't get that. A lot of women don't get that. There's just, we were actually yesterday we were talking about this with a bunch of friends, that so many of our friends, people who graduated with us, women who graduated with us moved into roles that are considered respectable for women, right? Like into teaching. Teaching is very respectable. And it's like probably like 50% of people who graduated with women who graduated with us. We never had that. Like I worked at a like media company for a year, independent television, and media isn't considered a quote unquote respectable profession to go into for women. But it was, we never got any backlash from our parents. Yes, from society for sure. But our parents at home we had our pillars.
Sounds good. So it sounds like that there were some societal pressures, but with the support of mom and dad and the family, then you were able to kind of overcome those and take a few risks along the way and kind of explore different opportunities, and then ultimately find something that well, would you say that you're passionate about what you're doing right now, or is there a passion brewing and growing, or what is that situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I have really thought about, like the idea of passion recently, and I am gonna say, like, I have a very strong stance of how we preach passion to young people. But like, you will find a job that's going to give you fulfillment in life, and it's going to be something that you wanted to do as a child. You came out of your mother's womb, and that's all you wanted to do.
Okay.
And I just find that so hilarious, because that's not how passion plays out. At least in my life, that's absolutely not how passion played out. I have like an affinity for something. I have an affinity for justice and for seeing a just world. And I've gone to different places looking for that. And it's funny, when I took this role in Everest, there's just one thing that I kept on thinking about, one experience. And I was like, the universe hands you things in the strangest of ways. Back in Bangladesh, this is probably in around 2012 to 2013. This is when I was working in the development sector. I got into a project for kind of like street children who work at, I wouldn't even call it a factory. And we kind of went to visit the place. And essentially the factory is a hole in the ground with a massive fire, and children as young as 4 or 5 are throwing plastic bottles into that. And now, if you remember, a couple of years ago, Canada got this like really bad PR because Canada was shipping its recyclables to countries such as Bangladesh, India, Vietnam, and Philippines. And that's what I saw in there. And I remember looking at these bottles and thinking, this stuff is not available in Bangladesh. This is not from Bangladesh. This is coming from somewhere else. And that stayed with me. I don't think that I can ever get that image or that smell out of my brain. But Everest is a sustainable beauty brand, and all of our packaging is recyclable. Like aluminium is completely recyclable. Like it can be recycled like as many times as you want. And I just kept thinking that if I can address that problem, like a tiny bit of that problem, if one less child is forced into that hellhole because of what I'm doing, then I think I've done a good job.
Sounds good. So your appetite for finding just causes can manifest itself in very different ways, where you don't have to be like a civil servant or someone out there. You could be helping like companies doing good things from sustainability or whatever, and that has downstream impacts for a bunch of folks that would have otherwise been taken advantage at even as young as 4 or 5 or whatever it is. So that's awesome. So it sounds like you're in a pretty good place doing things that are meaningful to you. And if you were to go back and give young Aditi some SWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier, I don't know if it'd be in elementary or high school or university or whenever, but what are some of the SWIKE that you'd give yourself in your younger years?
I would encourage, I've said this so many times, it's probably sounding like a cliche at this point, but young Aditi always followed her curiosity, but there were times when she didn't. I just probably encourage her to keep doing that, because that has served me more than anything else in life. What I want to say is, I picked up like a bunch of different things in terms, if you like, from language learning to like physics to I don't know, HR. Nothing you do is wasted if you're learning, and they will all come back to help you at some point in your life. They will all make you a more well-rounded person. And no experience is little. that I would say is the biggest thing. The other thing is take risks. I've taken one of the, I would say, like, things that really shaped my career is when I was working at Research Money, when our COO left, I asked my boss if I could try on the role for like 2 months. And if I didn't work, he could definitely find a replacement, but I just want to try it out for a bit. And that role stuck. That if it didn't work out, I think it would have been hard for me to swallow, but I took that risk anyways. So I think just taking risks, being confident in your decisions, knowing that, you are willing to figure things out and you'll make something work. I think those are the advice that I'll give myself.
Sounds good. What I took from that, and they almost go hand in hand, where you start, if you start taking risks, I mean, obviously, if it works out, then you have a ton of learning that you're available to kind of use and leverage in the future. But the other thing is, if it doesn't work out, you still have a ton of learning that you could use. So regardless, what you said about nothing you do is wasted when you're learning. So when you follow your curiosity and kind of put yourself out there and take risks, I think all of that is great, great advice, and sometimes easier said than done. But obviously you can look towards other people that have done it before and maybe get some inspiration from folks in order to chart your own path. So that's awesome. So what can folks look forward to see from you in the upcoming years or months or even longer, that sort of thing? And where can folks reach out if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I think you'd probably see me working, building a startup, which is what I'm doing in this current role. And probably that's something that I really enjoy, working at, like a smaller place where I can dip my toes into a lot of different areas. I'll probably just continue doing that. And yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name's Adity Gupta. That's ADITY space Gupta.
And we'll link those in the show notes for sure. But thanks so much, Adity, for joining us in the conversation. And yeah, hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode where we might dig deeper into something like maybe your perspective as a woman of color, or maybe some of the passion or taking risks swipe that you gave yourself as well. So thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so good.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.